The site Backpage.com, it's a classified ad site, has been shut down, and several top officials who worked there have gotten in trouble. They've been indicted over allegations that that site facilitated prostitution and child sex trafficking. You'd think feminists would be happy about this, and some are, but others are outraged by it. Women's March tweeted, quote, "The shutting down of Backpage is an absolute crisis for sex workers," that's the new term for prostitutes, "who rely on that site to safely get in touch with clients. Sex workers' rights are women's rights." Amy Peikoff is a talk show host and a feminist who supports keeping Backpage up, and she joins us today. Amy, great to see you.
Hi, Tucker. Thanks for having me back again.
So I know that you're a libertarian, which I don't agree with you, but I certainly respect it. I think it's an intellectually coherent way to look at the world.
Sure.
But I also know you're a feminist, and they seem at odds with each other. So the libertarian side of you would say, look, people have a right to enter into voluntary contracts. Prostitution falls under that heading. It's fine. But the feminist part of you can't really believe that prostitution is empowering to women because it's the opposite of that.
Right, but here's the thing. We're talking about government shutting down a website, and regardless of what you and I, Tucker, think ethically about prostitution and other types of sex work, the question to ask is whether it violates anyone's rights. And we need to, in order to empower women, leave all choices up to them in terms of how to conduct their own personal sex lives and everything else.
Right. That's the libertarian side. And I get that. I mean, again, I don't fully agree with it, but I think it's a reasonable thing to say. But the feminist position has nothing to do with that. The feminist position is about empowerment and dignity and not objectifying women, reducing them to their physical appearance, which is, of course, what prostitution does. It degrades women completely.
My version, insofar as I consider myself a feminist, I consider myself a feminist in terms of protecting women's rights. So whenever there is an actual threat to women's rights, I am going to be there and argue against whatever it is and say that we need to take some action accordingly. But insofar as this website was just facilitating transactions having to do with prostitution or other types of sex work, then there's no rights violation, and you need to leave the choice up to the women. We're not going to, it's not the American way to force a particular type of lifestyle choice on someone just because you disagree with it from your own ethical perspective. We need to back up and look at the perspective of individual rights.
Right, but that doesn't mean that all, quote, lifestyle choices are the same. And I don't know why a feminist group like Women's March would describe prostitutes as, quote, sex workers. Many of them are really young. They're being pimped out by older men, sleeping with creepy. The whole thing is like disgusting. But actually, that's not empowerment. That problem would be only worse. That problem would be only worse, as I understand it, if they're not online opportunities for these women. And, Tucker, there are two further kind of troubling implications of something like this, shutting down a site like Backpage.com. One is that it is in conjunction with a couple pieces of legislation that are also troubling, designed to remove content about sex off of the internet. And I think that sex is a good thing. I don't think that we should be shutting down content on the internet. And there's been a lot of preemptive removing of content from Reddit and other sites because of this. And then the second thing is that I think this is ominous in terms of other types of websites and tech companies coming under government control in the future. We just saw Zuckerberg in front of Congress today, and you think, oh, well, right now it's just a prostitution and sex trafficking website. But next it's going to be Tinder because people are using that to hook up, and it's sex, and, maybe we can get away with controlling that or shutting that down. Yeah, I guess I used to feel that way. And then it'll be Facebook and Twitter. And this is the problem, Tucker. And I literally can't wait for that day, to be honest with you.
But today's websites, Tucker, they are not only the method of distributing content, including all of the content that is necessary to change the culture for the better, they also collect information about users. So it's a very different type of media.
I'm aware of it, but let me just ask you.
But we have to be very careful about putting that under government control, because
I guess if you think the government is more sinister, I would not agree with you. I agreed with you 10 years ago, back when I was a mindless libertarian who thought that government was the greatest threat to our freedom. But government is elected.
But we do not want to end up in Orwell's 1984. We do not want to end up in Orwell's 1984. And if you think that information is troubling in the hands of somebody who wants to make money, think of it in the hands of government.
Which is elected, unlike Zuckerberg. But Amy, thank you. It's always nice to have you here. I like smart guests, and you are. Mark Zuckerberg testifying in the Hill is a big story, but another tech titan has revealed his vision of the future, and it'll wreck your night. Stay tuned.